The sun has completely disappeared behind the horizon, and here at the Portimao circuit in the Algarve region of Portugal, it's been 34 degrees. It's not quite that warm, but it's still very pleasant indeed out there. It's still towards 28, 29 degrees ambient temperature. There's still a lot of heat in this track, but more importantly, what tonight is about, we've got a 90-minute practice session. We're calling it night practice, and that's because it's all about running in the dark. Now you might think, well, what's the big difference about running in the dark apart from the lack of light? Well, that's exactly it. Especially here at Portimao, because this track has got such undulation that we are going to be going across. It's blind brows in broad daylight. So what that's going to be like, it's going to be going into pitch black holes, effectively. Paul Truswell?
Yeah, I think the other aspect to it is that it's a step into the dark for a number of the organising people as well, because they've put up some floodlights here and there, but they don't know quite how well they're going to work. You know, the teams will have configured the headlights to be pointing in a bit of one direction, but as you say, with the blind brows, a lot of the time they're going to be pointing into the sky. So it is a bit of a voyage into the unknown, and we may see some configuration changes at some point between now and the race itself.
We've got a line of cars lining up to take to the track when we get the green light, and down there soaking up that noise and atmosphere is our very own Nick Damon.
And it is a truly lovely evening. The heat's come off the day, there's a beautiful breeze. It's a marvellous place to be. As Ben was saying earlier, he should be out in a bar somewhere drinking beer, but we're in a better place. We're in the pit lane at Portimao with the cars about to roll down the grid. In fact, you're about to see a marvellously LED lit 75 Porsche car there, blue stripe down the side, 12 on the side, lights it to go. But behind me back here is one of the big intrigues of the entire event. It is the Preco Herberth car, the car that has effectively dominated when it's finished the event, but has sometime decided to move into GT AM. And the man I'm going to ask is Ralph Bond. Ralph, tell us, why are you in A6 AM?
Well, while we are in A6M, they changed the time for the M 2 times, and so we decided at least to go to the M. Yeah.
It's not a clever way of taking points off the Hoffa car?
Well, we think it's the best solution for us all in all, and let's see how the race will go.
So you feel that the new time for Pro is too fast?
Yes.
Are you sure? You sort of smile there like, no.
Sorry?
You were smiling like you thought, not really, we can go that fast.
That's my opinion, yeah, in the end. I think the time before was a little bit too slow. Now it's a little bit too fast, maybe. But it's a decision of the race director, so in the end we take it as it is.
And will it be frustrating having to stick to the AM speed?
Not for us amateurs, so we are going to fight for the 47, and maybe more for the pros. They have to lift in the end a little bit, but that's the rules.
Well, thanks very much, mate. Thanks, mate. And as I look behind me, the flag turns green, and another one of the Renault RS01s takes to the track. Joe.
Thank you, Nick. Nick Damon taking his stint in the first part of night practice. He will be relieved by our colleague Andrew Marriott, and alongside me is my colleague in the booth, Ben Constanduris.
Nick's so poetic, isn't he? Especially in the evenings.
Yes, very much so. And who wouldn't be under that beautiful sky and under that moonlit sky? He couldn't help but be romantic. He's a big softie at heart.
I'm very keen, changing the subject, to get on board with one of these cars and see where the lights point, because of course lights are very directional on a car, and if the circuit goes up in front of them, then they tend to point much closer to the car. But when the car is going up a hill, they're pointing into the sky, and there's about 3 or 4 places on this circuit where you kind of want the lights to be pointing on the apex below you, and they simply won't do that. They don't move. So I wonder whether we'll see, and this is one for Nick to look out for, teams tweaking the light setup of their car because they might have extra spots to try and get them to sort of shine down so that when the car's going up, at least they'll catch those apexes.
I think that's exactly what this session's about, Paul.
I think there'll be a lot of that going on, yes, and possibly because there's separate lights for pointing at the apexes than there are for the ones going straight ahead, and the ones that are aimed at the apexes, you're absolutely right, Ben, will have to be adjusted in order to ensure that the drivers get to know their way around. What tends to happen is that they get into a flow anyway. I mean, I won't say they're to drive around blindfolded, but they don't need to actually see every single ripple and bump in order to find their way around. They'll know sufficiently well, but it is a good point, and it'll be part of the setup of the car, is not just the suspension and the camber and pressures, but also where the lights are pointing.
See, now I agree with you for the pro drivers, but I don't necessarily agree with you for some of the AMs. And actually looking on the onboard camera with Felbermeyer here, the 32 car, they've placed cones on the apex of the corners.
I've
not
got
on this
Christian
one,
Frankenhoek.
but there are other places on the track where there are cones where you want to apex. Look to the right-hand side, there it is, and that's going to help them a lot.
Down to Nick, who I believe has got Christian Frankenhoek.
Christian, do you take it as a big compliment that the 911 cars decided to go into A6 AM?
A little bit. I think they want to have like a direct competition between us and them. I think they're still a little bit a favorite, but okay, we will see. It's a long race, and we still need to start a night practice. But I think it's a little bit of a compliment, and it's also nice to have like a direct competition between us and them.
And with the revised reference time, is that a competition you can take to them with your 5 drivers against their 4?
I think with their driver pairing, they're a little bit quicker than us. We have a little bit longer drive time because we can have more fuel, but they use less fuel, so it's I think a little bit even, but I think they're a little bit in front. But okay, we have to see. We have to push a little bit more maybe, and then we'll see what happens.
How does this affect the overall picture? Because, of course, the cars who've stayed in Pro, possibly with the exception of the Scuderia Praha cars, have, on the whole, been a little bit fragile, haven't they?
Yeah, so I think that's also what they thought. The Porsche is always a little bit tricky, you know. All the engine parts, gearbox, it's all in the same room, and because it's a little bit hotter than normal here, like in other races. So it's 35 degrees. It's a 24-hour race. So and they said also a little bit that they think it's better for their car as well. If they push 24 hours to compete with the top guys, they say, okay, we have more chance that we break the car, and now a little bit less chance. So I think they play it a little bit safer than normally.
Night practice. Have you been to Portimao and raced here before?
Not a race. I did a test here 7 years ago, so that was my first and only time. So that was different. So in the night, we know at night here in Portugal, it's like pitch black dark, like a little bit like in Brno. It doesn't need to be like a real disadvantage, but the only thing is, it goes really up and down. So at the end, it's the same like during the day because you don't see the corners anyway. So for me, like if it's day or night, I think it's the same. But we will see. We will see now what happens. I think it's a really cool track, a really driver's track. You see some of the amateurs or like the new guys here on track struggling to get to know it. So I hope at night, you know, everybody can come into a little rhythm, so we don't have a lot of that the cars don't hold up each other like during the race. So we will see.
Christian, enjoy your practice. Thanks, mate.
Thanks.
Yeah, it's great to hear from Christian Frankenhoek there from the Hoffa Racing Mercedes team. Of course, they are the defending champions. They are the team with the number 1 on it. And they have made an absolute mastery of running in the A6 AM class. Now, even though they're running in the same A6 AM class as the 911 Herbert Porsche, they're not running in the same subdivision. there are two flavours of A6AM. There's A6AM Advantage and there's A6AM Neutral. Now, the A6AM Advantage cars can run to a minimum reference lap time of 1 minute 47, as we were hearing from Christian Frankenhout. As we were hearing from Ralph Bone earlier on. At Christian Frankenhout's time, the Mercedes time is going to be a 1:49. So even though they are both running as A6AM cars, they are not running in the same subcategory within A6AM. So they're going to be 2 seconds a lap difference in terms of what their minimum lap time is. But of course, Herbert aren't used to running in the A6AM class at all. So they're not used to running at a specific lap time as the Hoffa Racing team are. So it's going to be quite interesting to see how this actually plays itself out, particularly with the Robert Renauers, who can clearly lap more quickly than 1:47s. But I think it was quite good from Nick there to have both the two protagonists in the different flavours of A6AM, because as I say, those two are going to be battling it out for championship points. Even though they are the different subcategories, it's a single class as far as scoring points is concerned. And of course, the Ferraris, the two Ferraris, one from Scuderia Praha and the other from the Rinaldi team, the Wochenspiegel team, Monschau team, and the Lamborghinis, they'll be running without any restrictions at all. And the Renault, they'll be running without any restrictions at all on their lap time. So fascinating races in prospect between outright speed from Lamborghini, Ferrari, Renault, and the limited speed of the Porsche, and the even more limited speed of the Mercedes. So it's a fascinating battle.
And it's a little bit different in what we've seen from the Herbert car before, where they've been allowed to go as fast as they possibly can.
Absolutely.
It's been a flat-out race.
And whereas Hoffa Racing has been running as an AM category car for the last 2 seasons, Herbert, it's going to be a bit of a new experience for them. So they do have to learn the discipline. It is a discipline. You have to keep your eye on that little monitor that they have in the car, and it's a GPS controlled thing, so it'll tell them all the way along whether they're ahead or behind where they should be, but they have to keep their eye on that all the time.
And it's through each sector. Now, what I mean by that is, if your target time is a 1 minute 44, did we say?
1:47 for the Herbert team.
Right, so 1:47. If you go through sectors 1 and 2, and then you're ahead of schedule, and this is for Ben's purposes, if you're ahead of schedule, you can't just back right out of it in sector 3. You're effectively, I know this is an exaggeration, so you go around the circuit through sectors 1, sectors 2, get to sector 3, park it up on the infield until you're back into the zone, and then pull away. You can't do that, because that would... The reason why the rules have changed...
the first time you do it,
yes.
But then your next time around, your sector 3 time means that your 1 plus your 2 plus your 3, which is what they then add up. The best sector time through sector 1, best sector time through sector 2, and your best sector time through sector 3. If those 3 add up to being less than the minimum reference lap time, then you get pinged. So, as Joe was saying, if you do what he's just described, it works for that lap.
Yes.
But then the next time around you come through, you've got to do the same thing again, so that your sector 3 time doesn't blow the...
You're going to blow it all up. And it must be very hard for a driver who's not, a driver is concentrating on his braking points, hitting his apexes, controlling the car, feeling the car slide around, listening for noises, and then he's got to actually get into this rhythm of timing and restrain himself for driving the car to the optimized way, which, let's be honest, since we first went to the first ever race school we ever went to, it's all about consistency and going as fast as we possibly can.
The only thing is, just before we go to Nick, the sandbagging rules do not apply in the A6 class. They only apply in the lesser classes. But down to Nick for more news from the pits.
With the pole sitting 11 car and Joseph Crowjoe, first of all, your car hasn't gone out yet. Is that a problem, or you're just incredibly relaxed?
Well, I don't really would like to say that we are incredibly relaxed, but for sure we are waiting for the night, because now it's still dawn, so really we're waiting for the proper night, which will be here really proper dark. On the other side of the race circuit it will be really dark, so we are waiting for that, because none of us drove here before in the dark, so we really want to try the proper one.
This is quite a challenging track in the light. I mean, in the dark, the blind corners become blind and dark corners.
Yeah, tell me that. I was already thinking about it. It is very challenging. It's first time for me here. but the track is really nice. I really love it. The corners are tough. It's up and down much more than it looks like on the TV screen. So I'm enjoying it, and now we'll see in the dark. But as I said, it will be a big challenge, so we need to really get ready for that.
You got pole, and the interesting news, obviously, is that your normal chief competitor, the 911 Herbert Porsche, has decided to go to the AM class. What's Scuderia Praha think about that?
We were surprised as well, probably as everyone else, because we didn't expect it. Both Porsche cars are in AM. We don't know really why. I mean, it's probably because of the fight in the championship. So we'll see. We were counting it as well, and in the end for us it's really we just go for it as a pro, which we did all the season, and we want to stick with it. So we're gonna do the same job, maximum attack.
The reference times have come down a lot from when you got here. Is the pro reference? Is the pro time which you can achieve fast enough to put a gap on the reference time to the AMs? Because the AM times are now much quicker. You've got to find 2-4 seconds more. Can you do that?
That's true. That's something what we were really discussing, because it's getting really close. I mean, for us it will be really tough to keep with them, and basically I have to say that it will be really tight in the end. It doesn't look like a big difference in terms of, let's say, the 5 liters and the time-wise. So it still looks like that we should be better, but anyway, there could be a little problem, and in that moment the AM car gets to the front, which is, I have to say, a little bit of a shame, because you would like to see the pro car in the front, not just because of the pro drivers, but because the rules allowed someone from AM to be in front of us. It's not something what we really like, but that's the question for the organizers, I have to say.
We've got a really big temperature variance here. It's about 33, 34 degrees in the glorious afternoon. It's going to come down to about 18 and 19. How is that going to affect how you attack the race? Are you going to have to be slightly conservative in the heat of the day and try and make all the time up at night?
Well, we will be more conserving ourselves as drivers, because it's really the temperature in the car is, I would say, even over 50 degrees. So it's really, really tough. But we have to survive the day, and in the dark, I believe it will be much more easier for us and for the car as well. So we just have to push through the day. Not probably maximum, because we want to save it a bit, because another day or the next day, let's say on Sunday, is still very long, because the race start is pretty late. So because of that, we will be tired after the night, and then we have to still survive full day. So from that point of view, we have to conserve ourselves in the beginning.
So would you, just for example, would you think you get like a double stint out of the tyres during the warm weather, but 3 at night, or is it not as simple as that?
That would be very helpful, but unfortunately, because we have a small tank, or let's say the consumption is a little bit higher, we cannot make it, because we have to stay in the car around 1 hour 10. So basically that's our time, and if we would like to do the double stint, we lose basically 20 minutes. So because of that, we have to probably keep the same rotation as we will start.
So your big rivals now are the other Ferrari?
Looks like also another Lamborghini, and well, I would say in the end also the other cars, because the race is still long. You never know what will happen. Just do our maximum to really be ready for that. And yeah, well, we need to survive the night, which will be really tough, and then the long day where we will be probably pushing as much as we can.
Thanks, Joseph, and congratulations on pole. Thanks again.
Thank you very much.
Great stuff and great insight there as to, we were puzzled as well why the Herbert team, I should say, has chosen to do that. Andrew Marriott sat behind me, just relaxing in a dark part of the room before he takes over from Nick in the pits. Great suggestion from Andrew in a way of controlling the pace of that Herbert Porsche is to turn the turbo down, give the car a bit less power, and it kind of eases the job for the driver, in my opinion. It's a good idea, that, Andrew. We're coming up to, well, we've had more than 15 minutes now, with 13 and a half minutes remaining before we are left with just 60 minutes of this session. I think it's time for a rundown. What's happening out there with regard to performance levels, Paul?
Well, I was going to say the quickest of them was the 911 Herbert Porsche, but just as I started the sentence, so the 28 GP Extreme Renault went quickest of all. So Axel Jeffries it is at the wheel who set the fastest time, 1:46.754. And just echoing what Josef Kral was saying to an extent there, Robert Renauer at the wheel of the 911 Herbert Porsche is second quickest. As I say, until a moment ago, he was the quickest, 1:47.404. So if the times that we are seeing are representative of what the race pace might be, then that's absolutely right. That minimum reference lap time of 1:47 is very quick indeed. So 1:47.404 then for the Herbert Porsche 911, Robert Renauer, second fastest. Third fastest is the Renault, the GP Extreme Renault. Nicky Pastorelli is driving it at the moment. This is the number 27 car though, the AM class car. That's done at 1:47.427, third fastest. Fourth fastest is number 29. This is the Porsche Racing powered by Olymp, the Polish entered Porsche, the Polish Porsche. And number 29, Rolf Hensler has been out and he's done the fourth fastest time, 1:47.673. So the top four times all less than a second apart. Fifth fastest is the number 32 car collection Audi R8. Horst Feldmeier Jr. has been out in that and he's done a 1:48.615. Now the car collection car, that'll be running to a 1:47. The number 32 car. The 21 is the next one up, which is the Conrad Motorsport Lamborghini, and that's Paul Scheusner who's been out at the wheel of that. He's done a 1:49.246. Seventh fastest is number 34, the second of the car collection Audis, Gustav Adolf, the driver at the moment, a 1:49.773 for him. And then eighth fastest is the number 1 Hoffa Racing Mercedes, Chantal Kroll, has done a time of 1:50.225. So that's the top 10 times overall. In SP2, the fastest car there is number 58, VDS Racing Adventures Mark Focus V8. And that's Ken Kasulka, who's done 1:59.019. That car was pinged for speeding in the pit lane, being alleged to have been speeding in the pit lane. And if that goes through, then it will be penalised 3 grid slots. So it will have to go back 3 positions on the grid for speeding in the pit lane during the qualifying session. So the fastest car in SP2 with that penalty hanging over it, the number 58 VDS Racing Adventures Mark Focus. That's in 12th place overall. Second in SP2 is a change because in fact going fastest in SP2 now is the number 2 Black Falcon Mercedes, the Mercedes test team, and that is, who's at the wheel of the number 2 at the moment? It is Aurel Schuller, and he has set the world alight as far as SP2 is concerned, a 1:52.128. So that's fastest car in SP2. Second fastest in SP2 now is number 85, the Pro Sport Performance Porsche. Charles Espenlaub has done a 1:55.728, and that leaves the Ken Kasulka number 58 Mark Focus down in third in SP2 now at 1:59.019. In TCR, it's the 308 car, the Team Altran Peugeot 308, which has set the fastest time. So nothing wrong with the gearbox in that car, having got that sorted now. 1:59.327. That's the fastest TCR has been all weekend so far for the 308. Second fastest in TCR is car number 108. That's the Cadspeed Racing Audi, and that was being driven by David Drinkwater. 2:0.855. And third in TCR at the moment is the other Altran Peugeot 308, the number 908 car, which has been taken out by Stefan Ventaya. Ventaya has done a time in the Peugeot of 2:03.635 seconds. So those are the positions then, as Joe was saying, a little bit over an hour of this hour-and-a-half session still remaining. And at the top of the list, it's Renault from Porsche from Renault, the top 3 still.
I've been watching the onboard cameras and looking at how this circuit is developing as a night circuit, and quite interesting to the high shots and long shots showing very clearly the angle in which some of the lights on these cars are angled. The Herberth Porsche with very, very aggressive lights, really pointing almost 90 degrees out of either side of the front bumper to really illuminate the very edges of the track.
Probably doing exactly what you suggested, though, Ben, where you need the light pointing into the apex at a much sharper angle than what the actual car is pointing at.
And some of them really don't have any extra bespoke lighting at all. The TTRS, for instance, is running just its normal lights. It doesn't have anything extra to it. Now, as I mentioned a bit earlier on, they've placed cones at a lot of the inside the corners. Now, I said they were the apexes. They're not at the apexes. They're at the start of the sausage curbs. And especially for the gentleman drivers, that's going to be really off-putting, because that's going to draw your eye line into that particular illuminated piece, and you're going to end up using that cone as an apex. That's just going to happen.
Well, normally, Ben, as a teaching aid, when you go to a race school, they place a cone at the point, at the clipping point, at your apex, at your clipping point, and you have to concentrate on pointing the car and getting to the edge of the track where that cone is. So you're going to have to clear your mind of all of that training and readjust.
Yeah. The other thing that that they've done, or that they are implementing, all the marshal posts immediately before the blind brows have now been equipped with an arrow, so that if a car comes to a halt just over a blind brow, there'll be an arrow hung over the side of the track in order to alert the drivers to move over. Put yourself in mind of the marshals that you often see at Le Mans, who are pointing, or at the Nürburgring, who kind of come onto the track and point to you to move over. Same type of thing, but slightly a safer version. They're going to hang a board with an arrow on it, illuminate the board, so that the drivers know that just over this brow there is a car that they need to, or there is an obstruction which they do need to avert.
We've been watching and running on board with the 963 Lamborghini, and that doesn't seem to have very good lighting at all, especially on the aggressive uphill sections. The visibility is really super short, and I know as road drivers we tend to look quite close to our front bumper, and we shouldn't. We should look far ahead, but in the Lamborghini it's very, very tricky to see too far ahead because of the lighting systems at the moment. I haven't seen too much shots of them from the outside, but certainly on board, as we stay on board with them, the lighting is not particularly good. Ooh, somebody getting out of it. Is that a convertible or is that a car? That's just a Marshall.
That's a car off the track. While we sort that out, a car coming to a rest off the circuit, off the track at least. Let's pop down to the pits and have a word with Nick.
Joe, so you are one of the drivers, or you and your team, one of the drivers in contention for the overall title. How much is that playing on your mind?
I'm sorry, say again, I just lost that.
You're one of the teams in contention for the overall title.
Right.
How much is that playing on the team's mind?
You know, right now, not really. We're here to learn more about this circuit, which is a really awesome place. We're grateful that the series came here. And we were put into a new class this weekend, and we're running SP2 this weekend as well. So we're learning a bit about how the class works, because there's some different rules associated with that. And honestly, there's 2 or 3 crews, I think, that are in the running for the overall GT title. Each one of them have something different that they have to do this weekend. And one thing I know for sure is that if we don't focus on what we're doing, then that's not going to help us. So right now, honestly, we're just worried about what we're doing and let the chips fall where they may.
As I don't know, can you tell me what are the different things in SP2 over the 991 class?
Well, it's a bit of bracket racing, as we call it in the U.S., meaning there's a minimum lap time you can't go under. There's actually more rules available to us. We can run some different parts, the aerodynamic parts that we've got on the car this weekend, but the Porsche 991 Cup car, which is what we're in, has to run at a higher weight with a smaller air restrictor, so it's heavier with less power than you would see in the 991 class that we've run so far this year. But at the same time, you're allowed to do some other setup things, just suspension and aero-wise. So we're kind of playing with both of those and trying to figure out how it all works. We've never run the car at this weight with this restrictor before, so we're figuring it out. And
is that affecting the way you set the car up, because you're carrying speed in a different way, or is it just you recalibrating your mind?
No, it's both, because you drive the car a little differently. It weighs more. We're trying to be nicer to the tires. The track temperatures have been really, really high here, so we can already tell we need to manage tire wear at the end of the stint. That's going to be a big deal here.
And of course, you're sharing with the Herberth team one of your rivals. Well, in a way.
You know, it's funny, we're not treating each other that way. We've been garage mates with them for most of the season, and we did it first 2 years ago at Paul Ricard. We all just got along really well. We, share people sometimes, tools, knowledge about the Porsche. Obviously, the really smart people who know Porsches tend to hang out with them, and so we like to be near that too. So we're all getting along fine, and we each have our own race to run.
You've had a really strong year this year. What do you put that down to?
Really just execution. We've done our best not to win races, we've just done our best not to lose them. Because if you look throughout most of the year until the last couple of races, we've almost never had the fastest lap. We've rarely had pole position in the first part of the season. So we have not always had the fastest car, but we've made the fewest mistakes, and hopefully we can keep going that way.
I know we've not done Portimao yet, but I have to ask you this question. How much are you looking forward to COTA?
Oh, I'm sort of looking forward to COTA. We want to share it. It's obviously a wonderful F1 quality facility. We want to share, that facility with this group, because this is a great bunch of guys to race with and against, not just in our class, but all the classes. It's a fun series. We like it here, and it'll be a fun race. It's a very technical, complicated track. It's a long track, 22 turns. It's going to be fun.
And will we get some good old American hospitality?
Oh, I hope so. Austin. I'm not from Texas, but Austin is a great town. And if you've been there for F1, I'm sure you'd know, and I'm sure that the town will welcome everybody with open arms, and hopefully everybody here as part of the series gets a chance to go experience it.
Joe, good luck for a stake, thanks.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thanks, Nick. Always great to speak to Joe Foster. Interesting, he said he wasn't going to Texas, though. Does that mean that Joe Foster...
No, he's not from Texas.
Ah, right. He is going to Texas, though. I would imagine that team has been together throughout the season, and Andy Pilgrim stepping in and being the fourth driver on the 24-hour races. Hopefully we'll get a chance to speak to Andy Pilgrim, Andrew. That's always a name that we would want to speak to at an event like this, get his thoughts on this beautiful Algarve track. It's got to be said, it's one of the best tracks I think I've ever driven round. Amazing place.
Ben, you were asking me earlier on about other cars to switch from A6 Pro to A6 AM, because it's not just Herbert who's done that. The number 29 Porsche, the Polish Porsche, Forch Racing team car, that switched into the AM category, and also the which one was it now? The Vortex number 204 has switched from A6 Pro into A6 AM. So we've now actually only got 5 cars left in the A6 Pro class to run at unrestricted lap times. The other 7 A6 cars are running in the A6 AM class, either in the A6 AM Advantage, 2 of those, or the other 5 which are running in the A6 neutral subcategory. So Herbert Motorsport not unique in making this decision to move into the AM class, and again looking at the times, still no improvement on what we saw 146.140 for the Nicky Pastorelli, the Pro Run Renault, and then Herbert Motorsport's second fastest with a time of 147.276. Daniel Adam and Ralph Bone, the amateur drivers, are going to be the ones who are struggling actually probably to hit the 147s, but we'll see how that one pans out. But I don't know, my view would be that they will be trying to get close to race pace in the night time, although with a brand new circuit and, as somebody said, one of the drivers we spoke to, pretty pitch black out there, the floodlights that there are not having a huge impact, so most of the time you are relying purely on your headlights. It's pretty dark out there, so I doubt whether they'll actually be able to achieve the same lap times in the night time as they will once we get back to daylight.
One of the big improvers in the SP2 class that we haven't spoken too much about in this session is the Mercedes GT4 car, the test team from Black Falcon, running this weekend. They didn't have a particularly competitive qualifying session, but they are actually now the fastest in SP2, and only about a second and a half off the slowest in A6. So the Mercedes, plenty of experience in 24-hour races from the Black Falcon team. Al Faisal is the man at the wheel at the moment, so he has plenty of experience in 24 hours of all different flavours, and the Mercedes is going around the circuit very well indeed. In fact, good couple of tenths faster than the other of the SP2 category cars. The closest is the guys who were on the pole, who have taken pole, Pro Sport Performance, 4 tenths back. So good to have the Mercedes-AMG guys using this event as a test bed. They are not a GT4 car as such, because there are so many development parts on that car, and they're trying things and testing things. But great to use the 24-hour series as that test bed in the second race meeting after VLN last weekend.
Yeah, there's still some questions over which, again, sorry to make these things complicated for you, Ben. I know your brain is exploding. There's different flavours of SP2 as well.
Oh, of course there is.
So you can either run at 152s or at 154s in SP2. Now, at the final briefing, the Black Falcon team said that they would be running at 154s. Now, the best time that the number 2 Mercedes has set thus far is a 1 minute 52.128. So it may be that they've changed their mind already as to which subcategory they're going to run in, because what it does is it gives them a little bit lighter of a car, or more fuel. They can kind of pay the money and take the choice. They can have a lighter car and get less fuel, or they can have a heavier car and then they can get more fuel in the car at every stop. So 2 different flavours, as I say, of the SP2 category. And the Black Falcon car was supposed to be running in the let me get this right, in the lighter weight one, but they may well have switched to the heavier weight, which enables them to go a little bit faster.
And if they exceed or go under those times in this session, does that count as well?
No, I think as far as this nighttime practice is, they can do what they want. During the qualifying practice session, then they will get moved automatically. But
so that's why we're seeing those AM cars pushing a little bit faster than they would normally do so.
Yeah,
makes sense. Having a quick look at the Audi R8 of Car Collection Motorsport. They've got 2, haven't they?
They have 32 and 33, 32 and 34.
This is the 32 car, so this is the faster of the 2. In 5th position at the moment, 0.6 back. Presumably one has a different grille colour to the other. Actually, they've got different liveries as well, haven't they? They're not quite the same livery. Big green grille on
the 32 car is the Felbermayr sponsored car with Horst Felbermayr amongst the drivers. The 34 car is the Edelhof's car, which Gustav and Max are driving, joined by Elmar Grimm, Ingo Vogler and Rahel Frey. And it is the Edelhof's car, which, as you say, is the slower one. That runs to a 1 minute 49, whereas the Felbermayr car, the 32 car, runs to a 147.
We are running on board with the Ginetta GT4, the G55, already with a cracked windscreen. Presumably came here like that.
Came here like that, yes.
Exactly. And it was Dan O'Brien who set the fastest time in the qualifying session. Kind of uncontested in terms of its class, because the SP3 Honda Civic Type R is clearly not of the same spec whatsoever. So kind of in the middle ground on their own. They are actually not the fastest. They're not faster than TCR cars in this session, but that might be a reflection of the driver rather than of the car. And a quick look at all the different buttons on display, all with fluorescent tape, so it's easy to see in the night. And the car looks well balanced. The lights look pretty good. You can see relatively far ahead, but there's not too many extra lights on that Ginetta. One of the big problems with the Ginetta is the fiberglass bonnet, which is a huge piece of fiberglass, runs all the way from the front of the car up one piece over the wheel arches and to the door. It's very flexible, so if you do put things that are extra on there, they tend to wobble about. They need to be kind of bolted to the frame underneath the fiberglass bonnet, and that makes it then a lot harder to deal with. Those cracks in the windscreen really distracting, catching the light as he comes past the pits. Start running your eyes down.
The other time when it was distracting it was when the sun goes down, because we saw some of the shots from that car during the qualifying session earlier today, where the sun was dipping down, and again, as the sun gets in the cracks, it really does kind of draw your attention away from what you should be looking. Although I guess if you're driving the car and looking out of the windscreen, you tend not to focus on the cracks because you're focusing on other things rather than the windscreen. But
well, I don't know.
It is annoying when you've got, even when you get a fly or something stuck on the windscreen, it kind of just get rid of that and I'll be able to see properly, even though it's only covering a tiny part of your field of vision.
They're going to pick up a lot of detritus on their windscreens over the course of this race, and I think if that becomes a distract, you've got to kind of focus through that, haven't you?
Yeah.
You've got to, not let that be the focus of your attention and just then throw it away and just get on with it.
Blue radiator grille on the number 34 car, just being picked up on the TV screens there to highlight the difference between the two-car collection Audi R8 LMSs. They do both carry Felbermeyer sponsorship, which I hadn't realised, I must admit. Closer look required.
So the car that we saw briefly parked up with two marshals around it was, I think, a photographer's car that wasn't actually on the track, because I've just spotted it on the exit of turn 5, and he's on the obviously on the access road. Two photographers with fluorescent jackets, marshals, but standing there taking photos. And actually, that turn 5, the hairpin, it's kind of the inner part of the track. It's the back of the. It's quite well lit. It's probably the best corner in terms of lighting. As you get further out in the back of the track, there are less and less of those floodlights. But certainly, there's a little bit of bleed coming from the paddock onto that turn 5, which is quite low anyway. And I think that's a pretty well lit corner. So as they come over the brow of the hill and then down into it, they at least get a decent field of view for me, what is the slowest corner hairpin-wise on the lap. Maybe turn 3 as well, but I think turn 5 is probably a fraction slower.
Mike Nash tweets a question, and it's a pretty interesting kind of fact that he's mentioning here. Mike Nash at kinetic_racing. How much further will the 911 car, the Herbert car, be able to run as it's backing off away from its optimum potential of lap time? Now, I know it's very marginal what we're talking about, and it's marginal enough to say maybe, it's not marginal enough to gain an extra lap of fuel. They're gonna, I would imagine, turn the power down on the engine.
Well, it's a good point, and in any case, because they're not running in the Pro class, they're allowed to put 5 litres more fuel into the car, and they also carry 30 kilograms less weight. So without actually doing anything to the setup of the car, they gain 30 kilograms, or they get 30 kilograms of a weight advantage, and they can put in 5 litres more. So that will certainly account for a lap, if not 2 laps worth of running, before you even take into account the fact that it's the pace isn't as high.
Yeah.
So I would expect it to be going for an hour and 10 minutes, maybe an hour and 15 minutes between pit stops. Kind of compare it to Hoffa Racing. I mean, we've watched Hoffa Racing in the past. They tend not to be the team to come into the pits when there's a code 60. Hoffa Racing is the team that tends to stay out there. Now, that's because they're allowed to put in the full 120 litres at every pit stop, because they run in the advantage. They can fill the tank up to its maximum at every single pit stop. They don't need to worry. But of course, by coming in, they're wasting time coming into the pit, so they tend to stay out all the time. So we may see Herbert not doing it as we've seen in the past, coming in every time there's a code 60, but staying out there in order to maximise their fueling advantage.
It just adds another layer of intrigue.
Yeah, no,
to the weekend.
Absolutely.
Good point, Mike. Good point.
And I mean, going back to what I started off by saying, the whole longevity question over the Lamborghinis, the Renaults, it may well be that they kind of think to themselves, well, you know what, let's just back our own pace off a little bit. We're not going to go into the AM class, but let's just back our own pace off a little bit, because we don't have to worry about the Porsches. And let's see what happens. Let's see if the cars last. As I said, the Renault, we know it will last 12. But
it can be a little fragile, though, can't it?
Well,
it can be a little bit.
Very much so, and so It's too early to call this race yet, Joe.
And it's absolutely. And the other thing is, it's what your mindset is. Are you going for a championship, or are you going to be the champion of the 24 Hours of Portimao? Are you going for the race win? And certainly the Renault hasn't really got a championship in mind, has it? It's out of the running for a championship finish. Is the Ferrari, or any of the Ferrari drivers involved in the championship battle?
In terms of the team's championship, no. It's between Hoffer, Herbert and Car Collection. In terms of the drivers, Jiri Pisaric is down in 12th place, but he's 30 points off the championship leaders. Jiri Pisaric and Josef Kral are, as I say, 29 points off the championship lead. But don't forget, or maybe I've not said this often enough, the points for this weekend are multiplied by 1.5, which means you get 44 points for a race win if your class has less than 10 cars, which all of the classes do have less than 10 cars. We've got 6 in SP2, 5 in TCR, and 12 altogether in A6, but that counts as 2 separate classes. You've got A6 Pro and A6 AM, which is split 7-5. Code 60 is being declared out on the circuit, and my guess is that this will be a nighttime Code 60 drill. We are pretty much halfway through the session, aren't we? 42 minutes elapsed.
I like how they do that. So they've got a flashing light illuminating the flag. So you don't wave the flag, you flash the light on the flag, and that creates the attention of waving it.
Grabs your attention.
You know how well flashing bicycle lights attract attention.
Yeah. Let's have a pop down to the pit lane where Andrew Marriott is waiting patiently. Andrew.
I am, and in the 911 pit with the Renault, and I can't tell you which one it is.
I'm Robert.
It's Robert, okay, so it's Robert. Very interested in your strategy. Have you finally decided to stay in AM?
Yeah, we would stay in AM. Now a different situation for us. I think we cannot go for overall win, but we have still a chance to finish on podium. Maybe win the Pro-Am class this weekend.
Well, the previous race, of course, an AM car won the race.
Yeah, that's right. And the minimum lap time is close to the times we can go during the day. So we decided to change in M.
Will you get an extra pit stop, one less pit stop, do you think? Because you'll get more fuel.
Yeah, that's right. That's advantage for us now. And also the 30 kilos less weight are also good for the tires over the complete stint. So yeah, we will see.
It's a very interesting and very clever strategy. Did you think about it weeks ago, or did you come to the conclusion this weekend it was a thing to do?
We checked the lap times during the day, and we think we can go in the race. If we are starting in Pro class, we can go 46, run about 46.0 for 46.5. Me and my brother. The other two drivers can go 47.5, maybe. And then we said, okay, let's try another strategy, go in M and see what happens.
And for you, how hard is it to go slowly?
Well, we have to play with it. Gustav Adolf and Kenneth Heyer is doing the same the whole season, so I think we have to handle it.
And can you turn the turbo boost down a little bit to make it easier to go?
Yeah, that would be great, but I think we can do it.
And the track itself now in the dark here, how is it? Are you enjoying it?
Oh, very dark, very dark. We have no extra lights on the track, so yeah, I think in the night it's no problem for us to drive the 47.0 or run about that, because we are not going to go even quicker in the night, so maybe another advantage for us.
Robert, thanks very much. These guys not only drive really fast, but they use their heads.
Yeah, we will see what happens.
Thank you, Robert.
Yeah, I've always been extremely impressed by that team, the Herbert team, and Robert Renault and his brother Alfred are a key part. They are the team. They are not just drivers in that team.
It's a family team,
they're the strategists. They're the tacticians. And I've always said, take no notice of where their cars are in qualifying, and all of a sudden, you see the Herbert car just appear. It just appears in the top 5, then it appears in the top 3, and then it starts leading the race. Ben, you've spotted something.
Oh, we had a very crazy psychedelic replay there where we had 2 onboard cameras melded into one. I think what we were seeing was the Tracy Crone, not sure if it was Tracy Crone, but
it was his car.
The Crone Audi TT RS2 running wide at turn 11. So this code 60 is actually to clean the track up because he dragged a load of gravel onto the circuit. Just ran a little bit wide. I don't know if the car that we were on board with...
It's Nick Johnson,
was
by the way,
also... No, but the car's been in, you see, and I think
see.
Nick's got in it since, because they would have had to clean out all the gravel from that car. I don't know if the car we were on board with also followed them into the gravel trap, or whether the car we're on board with is the car we're on board with now, and there was it was weird. It's like I've been drinking too much or smoking too much.
The guys in the truck, it was quite a clear picture for us, Ben. We were fine.
It was absolutely
we were fine. Yeah, it was just a 2-dimensional picture.
Okay, so
the guys in the truck will have to tell us what was going on there.
Oh,
It was Jason Wolfe who was in the car at the time before it came in for its pit stop. As you say, it has now switched over to Nick Johnson. But another stationary car on the circuit, Ben, is the Vortex.
Yeah, not the first time it's been stationary today. The problems continue for the 204. Now that car is currently 14th overall in this night practice session, and it's Nana Ghosh at the wheel, and that car has come to a halt. It's still on the track, but she's pulled it in to the curbside on the right hand side of the track. I can't see from where our cameras are pointing just exactly where on the track it is. Paul's got a tracker though, and he will tell us in a moment where that is.
I can't tell you, I'm afraid.
All right, well, I'm quite sure that is the reason behind the code 60, if not an added reason behind the code 60, which delays pulling those purple flags in. Lights are on the car, both front and back, so she has got full electrics. It's come to a stop.
I was desperate to tell you lots of information about the Vortex V8, the Vortex 1, and literally I cannot find anything on Google. The only thing that comes up is a remote control car. So tomorrow when Nick's back on comms, we can get him all excited by RC racing.
Well, we could do that the old-fashioned way and go and ask them.
Oh yes, that's a good idea. No, we can't. We're stuck in the box.
No, we're stuck in the box, yeah.
Yeah,
of course.
we'll send our merry pit lane men.
Yeah. I just wanted to know the history of the Vortex. You know, where
we're going to have to talk about it, aren't we?
Hang on, Andrew's down. He's heard the call. He's heard the call, and he's responded. Andrew Marriott.
Yeah, but I'm not down there at the moment with Stuart Hall, who we're not seeing in a Mercedes this weekend. We're seeing you in the a Renault. Quite an interesting car, this, Stuart.
It's great fun. I drove it last year in Dubai and Abu Dhabi. I drove this year in Dubai and in the Abu Dhabi 12 hours as well. So I've got a little bit of mileage in it. As our normal Rothko team, we're not here at this event. We're preparing for Kota in a few months' time. So been kindly invited back by Fred Fatian and the GP Extreme team to have another crack in the beauty.
And as I said, it was designed by Dallara, this particular car. Does it feel like a real race car? Does it feel a bit different to the Mercedes, being a carbon tub and everything?
Oh, it's completely different. It's a completely different feel. You know, the car wasn't really designed for 24-hour racing, so you know the GP Extreme Mononow competition guys have done a fantastic job to really sort of adapt the car for long distance racing with the brakes, the tyres, you know, making everything work for 24 hours and not a sprint race. And it's a great bit of kit. You can see by the times in Pro and Am in qualifying and now as well that the car's working pretty well, but as we all know, it means nothing today, does it? It's got to sort of count tomorrow afternoon and Sunday.
Well, what about this track? Fabulous at night. It must be really difficult for you. It's dark, isn't it? Really dark here.
I've had me carrots. No. It's, I did my first ever LMP1 test for Aston here back in 2009, so I've got a little bit of experience in the dark. I haven't been out yet. I'm due out in about 10 minutes, so really looking forward to it. Night racing's really good. We've got a good set of lights on the front of this, so that shouldn't be too hard.
Not too hard for Stuart Hall. Great to speak to you. Enjoy it, Stuart.
Great to see Stewie out in that GP Extreme Renault again. And I can, I suppose, apologise for the background noise. It's the pit lane. It's a working environment, and I'm not really sure what that was making that noise in the background. It was a fan doing what? Just cooling the car?
Yeah, attached to the front of the car.
Right, Andrew's back here. I can hear the fan. Andrew?
Well, there it is. Look, that's what made the noise.
Hang on.
It's all modified. I mean, this is really
there it is.
one of
It's
those
a leaf blower.
blowers. But it's been modified. They made a special carbon part, goes on the front of the leaf blower, fits exactly into the front cowling there of this Renault, so it cools it down. But that's what was making the noise. And I'm just trying to see what make it. Oh, hang on.
I think we've lost him.
And also,
Hope he's
Andrew,
all right.
there's the 204 Vortex coming in behind Andrew Marriott. So that the car that caused the code 60 has been retrieved and has been pulled back in, towed back in on the end of a strap. It did roll in. It didn't need a flatbed, and it looks pretty much intact. So, and by the looks of things, Hankook had pulled off to the side of the track. So probably technical issues, again, halting the session for that car.
Looked very similar to the problem it had in the free practice session earlier today when it just ground to a halt. And we were told then it was electrical type problems that were the issue. So a combined function, this, a code 60 to A, sweep the gravel off the track that was brought on by Jason Wolf, B, to sort out the vortex, which then ground to a halt, and C, also to practice the procedure. They've just sent a medical vehicle out onto the circuit, and I'm pretty sure that somewhere around the track there will be a in fact, it may have already happened. Martin van Pavert, the race director, will have gone out to make sure he is happy with the way things have been run. And the message comes up on the screen to say that the code 60 will be withdrawn within 1 minute. So there will be a countdown by walkie-talkie to all the marshal posts. And then simultaneously, all the code 60 flags will be withdrawn. Green flags will be waved. And as soon as you, as a driver, can see a green flag, you don't have to pass it. You just have to be able to see the green flag. You're straight back up to racing speed.
And do they get a countdown, surely, from their team as well?
If the team doesn't get the countdown, it's the marshals that get the countdown, but they get the 1 minute warning.
Okay, so they can work it out.
They can work it
out.
They've
got a stopwatch to hand.
And remember, a lot of these cars have not got any kind of automated limiter on the car. It's from the driver. It's from the driver checking, modulating the
second gear, 3,000 revs or whatever it is.
At 3,000 revs, and it's his right foot. That's the pit limiter, or the speed limiter.
The problem is that they have 3 different speed limits that they have to give themselves. They have the 60 kilometres an hour for the code 60. They have 40 kilometres an hour for the pit lane. 20 kilometres an hour, which is the speed limit in the refuelling area. So, I mean, the 20 kilometres an hour you kind of do by just what's working place, but 40 and 60 you have to stick to.
I mean, I know we monitor the officials monitor the pit lane speed limit, they monitor the code 60 limit. Are they got a fast car going? Have they got a speed detector? In the fueling area. Yeah.
So he won't be there all the time, but you know, in a black suit, he'll move out of the pit lane and go into the refueling area.
Right. And it's all about safety, of course. This is predominantly a Pro-Am series, and the reasons why these rules are there, and the reasons why these rules are addressed and meted out, are purely on the grounds of safety, and you really can't argue with it.
Interesting to see those that leaf blower on the team car, because a lot of GT cars and touring cars, they don't really need them any longer. They're so well engineered for the airflow, but obviously that car was a sprint car built specifically for when Renault had the World Series that they toured around the world, and they had this RS one make series, and when we had a look at that leaf blower, that was a Black & Decker leaf blower with a bit of carbon fibre on the front of it.
The sort of thing you get from any kind of garden centre or the like.
And I remember in Formula One exactly the same thing when the idea first came through to cool the brakes. When you came to cool the brakes, they actually originally came with Black & Decker leaf blowers with little attachments, and slowly but surely over the last 10 years they've actually kind of built their own now, but initially they were just picked up from Alfa.
It being Formula One, they wouldn't have allowed a kind of a Black & Decker.
They did.
Well, they did initially, because that in itself, by using that, was innovative. And then they extended the innovation by building their own.
Yeah, exactly.
Building their own. We're coming up to the final 30 minutes of this 90-minute session, and I think we're about ready for another rundown. At the moment, the number 28 car is at the head of the field in night practice, and that is the GP Extreme RSO1. We saw this car. This is the car in the hands of Jordan Drogo that really did chase down the Ferrari and challenged for outright for the pole position. But right now, it is the car at the top of the field, Paul, with, as I've just said, coming up to 30 minutes remaining in this session. You're listening to Radio 1, and here's our very own Paul Truswell to give us an idea of who's where in this nighttime session.
Yeah, so not very much has changed, I have to say. Most of the drivers just going through the cycle of we're getting each of the drivers through the car, and particularly with those cars that have 5 drivers, as the fastest car does. The time was set by Nicky Pastorelli, in fact, the 1:45.140 for the leading Renault, now in the hands of Pierre Brice-Mena, and so that car still the quickest, 1:46.140, but as I say, cycling through the various drivers. The 911 Herbert Porsche is still second quickest, and Ralph Bone, who we heard from earlier on, his last lap out there was 1:54, which demonstrates just how tricky it is to keep the lap times down during the night time. A 1:47.276 there was the time set by Robert Renaud very early on in the session. Third fastest is the other Renault, the number 27 car, the AM class Renault, which has number 27 has Bassam Cronfley at the wheel of it, 1:47.427 for him. Fourth fastest is the Conrad Lamborghini. Franz Conrad himself is out at the wheel of the car, so the team will be in utter disarray because Franz is out having fun, and the team won't know what to do in the garage. Franz 1:47.462 for the car, fourth fastest. The Lamborghini. Fifth fastest is the number 29, the Polish Porsche, and that car is currently in the hands of Zeljko Dimitrich, and he's done a time 1:47.673. Sixth fastest is the 963 car, which Milos Pavlovic is at the wheel of, and he's just put in second fastest time. So Milos Pavlovic, a 1:46.368 then for the Lamborghini, the Grasser Lamborghini, the green car. So it's now Renault, Lamborghini, Porsche, the top 3, and that's a change, as I say, with a very good improvement from Milos Pavlovic on that last lap. SP2 still being led by the number 2 Mercedes, the Mercedes test team, the Black Falcon team, which is Burkhard Kaiser at the wheel of the car at the moment. The car having done a time of 1:52.128. Yes, 1:52.128. Second fastest in SP2 is the number 85 Pro Sport Porsche. Joe Foster is out of the wheel of that car now. They are just 0.3 of a second slower than the Mercedes. Third fastest in SP2 is the 206 car, the Audi that we saw having the gravelly moment. Nick Jonsson having just improved in that car. He's got the car time down to a 1:54.622 then. TCR, the fastest car there, is the 908 Alltran Peugeot, now going quicker than the 308 car, so it's 908 ahead of 308, and then third in TCR is 108, so it's 908, 308, 108, 108 being the CAD Speed car, Jim Brew, the Eric Holstein, James Campbell, and Ricky Coombe the drivers. And we can go down to Andrew Marriott in the pits for more news. Andrew.
Well, I've been trying to find out more about this Vortex, the 204 car. I've been speaking with the Danish driver, Martin Goetscher, who's racing together with his sister, Nana. I think they're probably better known in karting. They race for the Tech Kart racing team. But he admits that he doesn't know that much about the car itself, other than the fact it's got a Chevy LS7 engine in the back. That's basically a Corvette engine, so it's got lots of honking horsepower there, and it's completely designed and run by a French group, but most of them don't speak any English. I'm trying to get to somebody who's going to tell me some more about it on camera, the coaches were particularly shy, and I tried to interview Nana and she completely refused. I don't think it's very professional, to be honest, but there you are. She didn't want to talk about it. Maybe she's worried about her English. Usually the Danish speak better English than the English, but there you are. So we'll try and find more out, but it's a bit of a mystery, this vortex, really.
Thank you, Andrew. Yeah, it is. It's certainly had a bit of a character-building day so far. Maybe it's going to get getting all of its bad luck out the way. No. And tomorrow, I'm trying to put a positive slant on this. I know you're the literal part of the team here.
Oh, we don't need. Is Nick still in there as well? We don't need him as well.
Cynical Nick's not here. No.
I do have a contact who will give me some information, and I'll send him an email overnight, and we'll get chapter and verse.
A source on the inside.
Oh yes.
Oh really?
Yeah. It's not what you know. It's who you know.
I know. Absolutely. That's why I'm sat here.
But so hopefully we'll be seeing the vortex out again before very long, having been brought in on the back of the tow rope. Slightly disappointed that when I did the top 6 rundown, I didn't mention the Scuderia Praha Ferrari. Well, that was an omission not only of mine but also of the Scuderia team, because they've now gone up to 4th fastest. So the number 11 Scuderia Praha Ferrari now up to 4th fastest. Josef Kral having done his best lap on the last lap at 1 minute 46.776. So we've got a really nice mixture now with the Renault the fastest, the Lamborghini the 2nd fastest, then the 2 Ferraris, the so-called Wochenspiegel team Monschau, although it's run by Rinaldi Racing, Ferrari is in 3rd place, and the Scuderia Praha, the Czech version, is in 4th place. Then Herbert Motorsport with their Porsche is in 5th place, and the other Renault, the AM Renault, is in 6th place. That's the car that Stuart Hall is on the driving strength of. So good little amount of variety in the top 6 places, and good to see a mixture as well. The limit of 1 minute 47 being stuck to by the AM class cars in this nighttime qualifying session, of which the main purpose, apart from getting the lights pointing in the right direction, is, as we've been saying earlier on, to get the drivers qualified in the night. They have to do 2 laps in the darkness, and so for the teams with 5 drivers, that isn't necessarily the work of a moment.
And you would think that that's going to be quite easy with 90 minutes, but it's surprising how much that clock ticks and how that time is soaked up. And while you were talking, Paul, Josef Kral has gone even quicker in the Scuderia Praha Ferrari. He's now put in a 1 minute 46.600, and he's going quicker still. Now,
which makes him the quicker of the 2 Ferraris, because the 2 Ferraris have swapped round.
And what I'm thinking is we've already cycled through our driver rotation in that car, and now we're going to see just how quickly the car can go in these nighttime conditions.
Whilst the Rinaldi Racing Ferrari comes into the pits and also has a driver change. So that was Nico Menzel getting out of 488. And I don't know if Andrew will have been able to catch who it was getting in.
Well,
my money would be on Jochen Krumbach, but
we shall see. Let's keep an eye on that with 25 minutes. There's still a chunk of time left for some optimum lattery in the dark conditions here at Portimao. We'll keep an eye on that number 488 numbered Ferrari, aptly numbered, I think, for the Ferrari 488 model.
I don't know if we mentioned it already before. We obviously in qualifying we only had one of the Peugeot 308 TCR cars because the other had a gearbox change. That other car is now out on circuit and is the fastest of the TCR cars. The 908 car has done a 1 minute 58.899. Andrew, you're down in the pit lane?
Yeah, I'm with Nico here. He's just climbed out that Ferrari. First, it's fantastic to have a second Ferrari in this series, and you must be really enjoying this Portimao track.
Yeah, absolutely. W Team Racing is doing a pretty good job over the whole weekend. So the first time for us here. Amazing track, and let's see. Qualifying was okay. It was P5, and now let's work a bit for the race pace. At the moment, for the night pace.
But you're in a Ferrari, and you're the son of a famous Porsche racer, Christian Menzel. What's this all about?
Yeah, exactly. Christian is my dad, and I really grew up with racing. Normally I'm racing BMWs, BMW Junior, so also thanks to BMW for the approval. And yeah, it's been a long friendship with the team, with all these guys, and I know them for over 10 years, and yeah, nice to be here.
With George Weiss, of course, being the team owner, you've had a lot of success, had a VLN win, you had, I think, 7th at Nürburgring 24 Hours this year. I mean, this car goes really well.
Yeah, absolutely. They changed compared to last year, or the last years, this year to Ferrari, and yeah, they developed the car very quick and very nicely. So yeah, now we have a race car which can win races, and we give our best to do it here as well.
And does Dad come along and give you a hand, or is he back in Germany?
No, he never does. Better not. No, he's working. He's in Spa-Francorchamps as a driver steward for the Porsche Super Cup. So yeah. Now he decides who gets a penalty and who not.
Thanks. Go and have a rest. Well done.
Thanks.
Thank you, Andrew. And
even if Nico is a BMW junior driver, he actually took part in the Porsche Super Cup race, the Championship 2015. I think he must have done some Carrera as well. So he is a BMW junior now, and he was part of the Talent Cup when there was Formula 13 and 12. But in the meantime, he kind of has switched to a couple of different brands.
If you're running the BMW Junior Driver Program, is there anything wrong in placing him in a very competitive series like Porsche Carrera Cup and Super Cup or whatever that might be, for it to give him a good ground league? Back to the pits though with Andrew.
Yeah, I'm going to dive in. Chris Hoy wasn't expecting me. And Chris, we spoke to you earlier in the day, but now you've been out on this track in the night. Quite something, eh?
Oh, it's an amazing track. Yeah, I love it. It's there's something special about racing at night. I think that's what draws everybody to 24-hour racing. So yeah, to get out on a track that gets very dark, there's very little ambient light out there, but yeah, fantastic.
Now, your racing career has sort of taken it a bit easier this year, haven't you? You've been doing a few Caterhams, and of course you got the LMP3 race. I know you were testing at Stetterton the other day because I was up there.
Yeah.
But are you thinking of going back to Le Mans?
I'd love to go back. It's just about finding the right opportunity. So if I get the chance, then I'd grab it with both hands. But it's not easy. There's a lot of drivers out there looking to try and get a seat at the biggest race in the world. So it's if I get the opportunity, of course, I'd love to be there. But I just, any kind of racing, whether it's club level, Caterhams up to Le Mans, I enjoy it all. But it's it's no surprise. Le Mans is the kind of cherry on top of the icing on top of the cake. It's the big one that everyone wants to do.
No, I apologise for this because it's a silly question from somebody who doesn't know that much about cycling. They ever have cycle racing in night?
Yeah, well, they actually have 24-hour races. There's one at Le Mans. There's a cycling race at Le Mans on the circuit for 24 hours in teams. I think you can do it solo as well if you're mad enough to do it. You get 24-hour time trials where you ride by yourself as far as you can in 24 hours. So it's not my cup of tea. I used to like racing for 10 seconds, far more sensible, far more civilized.
It's obviously when you were cycling, you were enormously fit. Are you still keeping that fitness up for your racing?
It's a different kind of fitness, but I used to train 6 hours a day, 6 days a week. So now I try and fit in, if I can, an hour a day, but not the same intensity, not the same level, but enough to keep fit, enough to enjoy feeling healthy, hopefully, and enough to try and deal with the racing, because particularly when it's very hot, these conditions, it can be very physically demanding in the car on the double stints, triple stints, so you do have to be physically fit.
So Chris Hoy, thanks very much. One of the most eloquent men in sport.
He is the consummate sportsman and professional. And I remember when Sir Chris first came to racing, his biggest issue was reducing the size of his thighs because he really did have ridiculously sized thighs. Obviously, from the cycling discipline that he excelled at, it was all about acceleration and bursts of energy. So his thighs, if you look at any cyclist's thighs, not that I go around looking at cyclist thighs, I've got a half Ben, I might have you Ben, but I'm digging a hole here and it's getting deeper, isn't it?
Be quiet.
But no, and he'll tell you, that the kind of training, the physical training that he did for motor racing is obviously and logically completely different to the kind of training he did for cycling. And you can imagine, you know, that he had to really work hard in reducing that muscle content on each of his thighs. He just literally would not have gotten into something like a single seat or an LMP3 prototype, which is, you know, a confined cockpit.
He was steadfast on doing Le Mans. That was the ambition, coming directly out of the Olympics, and that meant doing single-seaters or at least prototype sports cars, and therefore those are confined cockpits. And in fact, in the LMP3 year that he was running what is now, I suppose, the Michelin car, his teammate Charlie Robinson was the size, his rear end was the size of a 1.5.
Was that right?
Yeah. So there was a huge amount of padding that poor Charlie had, who was a tiny lad, had to put around him to fit in the same seat. And the whole drive, yes, to be fit, but also, as you say, to strip off all of that weight and all of that muscle around those legs. And I think maybe it's something for the dead of night, but he's lost a lot of muscle mass on those thighs, just simply so he could fit in the LMP2. Not so much of a problem when you're racing a standard to the touring car, but the ambition was to be an LMP2 racer, and therefore he had to try and become a jockey size as much as possible.
I know I've spoken to him, but he didn't really go into massive detail, different diet, different training regime, different type of training. But I would imagine it would be like, just don't walk. Chris, don't walk. Because
you have to run.
You have to run to reduce the muscle.
Running stretches and splits the muscle apart.
Right.
Whereas the muscles are bound
like
together.
weight training then.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, come away from weight training where you're increasing the muscle for that burst of energy which you needed for cycling discipline.
Yeah.
Bizarre and a great story there. Down to the pits again though. Andrew Marriott is still lurking.
Yeah, well, I found a British team here, Zest Motorsport. Rob Taylor's driving. Is it your team, Rob?
No, I drive for Malcolm Cleland, who owns the car. I've driven for him now for 3 years. Did a brick car championship the first year, and then we had moved into this the next 2 years. Yeah, so it's quite a bit of step up.
And how's the Seat round Portimao?
It's good. First time I've driven here, but absolutely awesome place. Absolutely, there's one or two really corners that you really got to be careful with. The one over there where you go uphill, and all you can see is black. I lost my way a couple of times, but I think I've got to keep to the right regardless.
By the end of tomorrow night, you'll know where it goes.
I think so, yeah, probably.
You've got an eclectic mix of drivers with you. Had you met them before? Are they a group that's worked together?
First time we've all been. The French guy, Philippe, I've driven with him before, but the other three, I think the Spanish guy is a pro driver, and Jean.
There you are, you see, it's a new team.
Yeah, I know. Sorry, I've forgotten what his name is, but it's him, father and son. I think the father does a lot of Porsche driving, so this was all new to him as well today. Getting to learn the Seat, he'd never driven the Seat before.
What about this series? You're enjoying the way Creventic operates? It's quite relaxed.
It's good. It's hard work with these real fast cars because, you know, the lights blind you and you're coming into a corner and you're trying to turn in and all you see is lights in your mirror and you lose your turning in point. But I try to just keep over and let them go and do my thing.
How long have you been racing, Rob?
Did you really want to know that?
Yeah, I really do.
I started when I was my early 20s, and then I did about 5 or 6 years and I stopped, and I started again about nine years ago. And I went to Florida with my nephew, and I did some racing over there in a Golf GTI in the SCCA, similar like in little endurance events. We had some success. We won their class, their championship, and in the touring some. It was not TCR. It's Tropical Endurance Championship.
Tropical? Oh, wow.
Yeah, it was tropical. It was really hot. So then I came back and I just looked. I got the bug again. I wanted to carry on. So I looked around, and years ago when I was younger, all this sort of thing wasn't available. But this just depends how much money you've got as well, doesn't it?
Great, it does. Rob, nice to talk to you. Have a great weekend.
Thank you very much.
Great to talk to competitors like that who have been around, and that is the very essence of what Creventic are about, and it's the very essence of what this series is about. And it's kind of that, that kind of competitor is able to then come here, race on this fantastic facility against the quality of field that we have here this weekend. And then talking to Rob like that is just again what this series is all about. We are inside the final 15 minutes of our night practice. We have got no indication that any of our teams have failed to meet the regulations and cycle through their driver lineups. You see Tracy Krohn just getting out of the Audi TT there in the distinct Krohn Aviation green, in having a conference there with his co-driver Nick Johnson. They've been teamed together for some years now at the very highest level of endurance racing. They've raced at Le Mans many times. I would, in fact, it'd be interesting to find out just when Tracy Krohn debuted at Le Mans. He started off as his driver mentor, driver trainer, and I would imagine continues, but with less input, as Tracy himself has got and gained a lot of experience now in this kind of racing. But as we thought, night practice was about how these cars perform in the darkness out on the Portimao circuit, with no floodlights out on the track. The only part of the track that's lit is the start-finish straight, so you are purely relying upon the lighting from your car once you are out off the start-finish straight and into the course proper. And that, of course, poses problems for our camera vantage points. You can get certainly feel what's happening on the track. We've got the 908 Peugeot in our view at the moment. This car circulating in 19th place overall, and the driver at the wheel of that car at the moment is Thierry Boyer.
Yeah, still the fastest TCR car ahead of its teammate. That's the car that didn't do qualifying, so we'll start at the back, even behind Sir Chris Hoy's Honda Civic. It won't take long to get past that one because it is 6 seconds slower than anybody else, the Honda Civic Type R. That's not a reflection of the drivers, by the way. That is simply because the Honda Civic Type R they're driving is super standard.
You only have to look at the ride height.
Yes, exactly. It's mild. And they've changed the suspension.
Yeah, they've changed the suspension, but the ride height on that car, if you put the car side by side with something like the Peugeot 308 from the Ultron team, you'll see the massive difference in ride height. And that's the centre of gravity of the car. The roll centre of the car is going to be at a disadvantage, and it's just not going to be able to go around this track as quickly as a non-standard car that we see here this weekend. It is the closest car we've got to production standard here in the field, isn't it?
And they're going to be the hare. No, they're going to be the tortoise. They're going to be the tortoise.
Yes, they are.
Yeah,
it's going to be interesting to see. Just monitor that car. We know those VTEC Honda engines are, touch wood, I dare say it, relatively bulletproof. If you don't, habitually abuse them, they are pretty strong motors, and that car will go round and round and round, I believe, and will continue to go round and round and round, and will pick up places due to attrition. It's a long race.
What's interesting though is despite all of the amateur drivers and the discovery of this circuit in the dark, many have never been here before. There is never been this kind of night running on this circuit in a competitive environment. People have used this track. I
believe there has been. I'm sure there was a
dusk to night.
Oh, you've got me thinking now. I'm sure there was a Le Mans series race that finished in the dark.
Okay.
Yeah, Nick was there. Didn't the Le Mans? So the Le Mans series race
he raced in the
started
dark.
in the day,
Okay.
went into the dark.
Yeah.
Sorry, 2011. Oh, sorry.
Oh, really?
Was that the 2010 race?
Having a conversation with somebody off mic.
Yes, that's never good for radio.
Never good for radio.
Or TV pictures, is it? Yeah. Thanks, Nick. Sorry.
Also, it's not the first. I've been waiting all evening to get this fact in. It's not the first 24-hour race.
No way.
No way.
I was told by good authority that it was.
The Benja Fields 24-hour race took place here at the start of 2015 for 1920s Bentleys.
Really?
Yeah, to celebrate the 90th anniversary of Bentley.
They 24-hour race?
Yeah.
1920s Bentleys. Yeah. Sort of things we see.
Sit up in banks.
The pre-war races.
And they did I guess it probably wasn't so much of a race as more of a parade, but they did do a 24-hour race here in January to celebrate.
Those cars, they are, the Aston Martin Owners Club run a series called Pre-War, and those cars are raced, and they are slid round the turns.
Yeah, but that's all right. I've seen classic racing for 24 hours. It's
I know, and they're worth a fortune.
Because I actually thought that there was a local Portuguese 24-hour race that was organised here a couple of years ago, so I started Googling. And it turns out I was wrong with that. I discovered this 1920s...
wow, that's phenomenal.
Yeah, there we go. So it's not...
Was that an internet? I'm trying to find us a niche here as the first 24-hour race at, I don't know, at this level, modern level. Modern machinery. Yeah,
modern machinery.
Yeah.
And as I say,
good factoid.
I don't think it was a race as such, more of an adventure, massive adventure.
Yeah, I wonder who continued going round and round for 24 hours, or.
Yeah, gentlemen drivers enjoying their red wine in the garages during the race.
They're not strapped into those things. Can you imagine driving one of those cars in the dark?
Around here?
Yes, with shimmering lights.
And all those compressions and stuff like that. You would literally be light in the car as you went over the brows of the hill.
Heavy cars as well in those days.
We have just coming up to 5 minutes left of the night session. Still Renault at the top of the timesheets. The RS01, fastest car, just by a fraction ahead of the Ferrari, the Scuderia Praha Ferrari, which we are more used to seeing in endurance racing. Renault RS01, not an endurance car, as Stuart Hall alluded to earlier, but lots of work done to make it hopefully last the distance. This is an endurance race. This will be about enduring 24 hours. It's going to be a hot day tomorrow. It's going to be up to 28 degrees, and it's not going to be particularly cold in the evening. Andrew Marriott's relieved us from our 1920s chat.
Yeah. Well, I've found a chap here called Jim Brio from the States. I think you're from Ohio, aren't you, Jim?
Yeah, from Arizona, the high desert.
Jim has been racing a very long time. If you Google him, you'll find out you were winning races probably in the early 70s, Jim.
Actually, my first endurance race was in 1981. I was the Peugeot factory driver in the United States. And my co-driver was Danny Sullivan, who went on to win Indy in 85. So we got him on board for the first endurance race with an old Peugeot 505, and we won our class. So he was a happy camper.
What other things have you raced over the years?
Oh, I've raced GT prototypes, all different types of sedans, the Trans Am series. And when I ran the Trans Am series, I taught my wife how to build engines. So she was my engine builder.
Phenomenal.
I built a 650 horsepower 5-liter Chevy.
Wow. And you've done the Daytona 24 a few times, I think?
I've done Daytona, I believe it was 6 times. I've done, 6 times. And one of my co-drivers is a young NASCAR driver now named Paul Menard. And he did really well.
Now here you are in Portugal, running in James Kay's Honda, and you must be enjoying this. I suppose the twilight of your racing career.
Well, when they ran the 32-hour, I was running with Corey User, Marcos Racing, and we ran a 2-liter turbo diesel BMW. We finished first in class and third overall.
Now, your wife's here. Let's bring her. Come on. You build race engines?
I used to, yes. Yeah, I can build a 650 horsepower, small block Chevy. Isn't that what every girl needs to know?
Absolutely. Have you been having fun over here at racing in Europe?
Absolutely. Yes. Yes. This is fabulous racing. We enjoy it thoroughly. We both do.
Well, we look forward to talking to you when the race is on, and we hope that Jim has a good run. I mean, you've done your night session, and you enjoyed that.
This will be my 88th 24-hour or longer race. And I've got 22 wins and 48 podiums.
Well, I reckon that's a record, Jim. So it's great to catch up with you. We'll catch up with you again and let you get off to dinner. There they are, the Brios. Excellent.
Absolute classic Marriott that. Still plays with cars, Jim Briody, and it's great to have him out in the Audi RS3. What a depth of experience both him and his wife bring to this series, and it's fantastic to get a chat with him. And no doubt we'll get a further chat with him. Ben?
He's a bit of a stalwart, actually, of the championship. Raced and took a victory in the D1 category back in 2010.
Before my day, yeah.
Well, that's the early days of the Creventic. Well, before it was probably called Creventic. 24-hour of Barcelona. He's taken victory in 2011, and the Maxi endurance race. Now that was in Navarra, I think, or Aragon. It was billed as the longest ever endurance race at 32 hours. And he took victory in the touring car class of that. So he's ticking various boxes. First race in Portimao.
Andrew.
Yeah, go ahead, Andrew.
Go on, you're open.
By far not the longest endurance race. It used to be an 84-hour race at Nürburgring. It came off the end of a rally called the Marathon de la Route, and then it was a race at the Nürburgring. It went on for 3 days. Might have been even more. I went to it once, not for the whole time, but for part of the middle of it. But that was the longest endurance race.
That's ridiculous. I'm sorry, that's ridiculous. Paul would love that. Trussers would love that. 84-hour race. That's just ridiculous. There's
Could Trussers stay up for 84 hours?
I never tried. But no, Andrew's right. Although whether it was a race or whether it was a rally is one of those debates that you kind of start to get into at that point. But yes, I mean, certainly the race at Navarra was very poorly subscribed, it has to be said. No, that's certainly, what did he say, 70?
How many cars?
Single figures. Yes, exactly.
Well, Jim Brodie won the touring car.
He said 77, was it, that he said he'd done. Certainly it was phenomenal number of 24-hour races. So no, good luck to him, and let's hope that this race is one that he'll remember as well, over the tortuous sinews of the Portimao Algarve Autodrome. And we're down to the last minute of this 90-minute session. Sorry I went offline for a few minutes there. I was trying to get something else set up, which wasn't desperately successful. The 911 Herbert Porsche is not pointing in the direction it ought to be pointing in, for it has gone off, Ben, very early in the lap. I would say that is around about turn 3.
That's not something you see very often.
Marshall 0.5, so it's got to be... It's showing up on our timing screens. Yeah.
That's Alfred Rinauer at the wheel of the 911 numbered Porsche of the Herbert Motorsport team, and that car is going to bring a premature halt, but right at the very end. I think the checkered flag was being unfurled as that car was noticed on the outside of the track there. What corner did we say?
Turn 3, I reckon it's
Turn 3. Right, okay.
So very early on around the lap, through those two fast initial right-handers, and then the tightening one. Alfred Rinauer, I think, would not admit to being, or would admit that he's not as quick as brother Robert, but nevertheless he doesn't normally blot his hoppy book like that. Whether something broke on the car, he's finding it difficult to restart it. I think that's the main issue at the moment.
And he's in the middle of the circuit as well.
Has gone from being on the outside and out of the way to being on the inside and in the way. Checkered flag is now being displayed, though, so there's no point in...
He's got no lights on, by the way, Paul. He's in the middle of the track, and the inside, the middle of the track at turn 3, we think, and he's showing no lights now. Now he's turned his lights back on, and when he's obviously trying to recycle the car to get it refired, and in so doing, he's had to switch everything off. And that was very, very tricky because the cars were coming through that turn and being met by the reflection from their own headlights of the errant Porsche static in the middle of the track. So I'm sure that caused a little consternation. We've got yellow flashing lights, so of course the competitors will be aware and be concerned about meeting something when they come through the turn. Paul, that gives us, we've concluded with the checkered flag falling. Shall we have a rundown of the field, and in so doing I'll keep an eye on what's happening with that Porsche?
Yes, and I must just thank Janos Wintham for emailing me. The 32-hour race was at the Algarve. It was here, not at Navarra, so he says. And he also suggests that the 84-hour race was definitely run on a rally format. So thanks for that, Janos.
So it's not it's the first 24-hour race, but it's not the first endurance race here then for modern cars. Our facts are going out the window. More tomorrow.
Yeah.
On the track, meanwhile, Alfred Renault has got the 911 pointing in the right direction again. So, having taken the checkered flag twice last time, he's not going to take it at all this time. Summary of the order then. I'll run through the times. The drivers, fairly irrelevant because you were just cycling through the drivers for most of the time. Fastest of all, the GP Extreme Renault RS01. Car number 28 did a 1 minute 46.140. Second fastest, the number 11 Scuderia Praha Ferrari, a time of 1 minute 46.191. Third fastest, number 963, the Grassa Racing Team Lamborghini Huracan, a time of 146.368. Fourth fastest, number 21, is the Conrad Motorsport Lamborghini Huracan, and that did a 1 minute 46.673. Fifth fastest was the 488 Wochenspiegel Team Monschau Ferrari 488, and that did a time of 148.725. Sixth fastest, the car about which we've just been speaking, spun on its last lap, number 911 Herbert Motorsport Porsche 911, fastest in the A6 AM class, and its time 147.276. Seventh fastest was the second of the GP Extreme Renault RS01s, number 27, the AM class car, 147.308. Eighth fastest, third in AM, was the number 1 Hoffa Racing Mercedes, 147.565. Ninth fastest, number 29, the Forch Racing powered by Olymp Porsche 991, which did a time of 147.673. Fourth in the AM class, fifth in the AM class, and 10th overall, car number 32, the Car Collection Motorsport Audi. The two cars actually together, 32 and 34. The other Car Collection Audi in 11th place. Their times 147.774 and 148.814. In SP2, the fastest car there was the Black Falcon Mercedes number 2, did a 1 minute 52.128. Second fastest in SP2, number 85, the Pro Sport Performance Porsche, which did a 152.452. And third fastest in SP2 was the 206, the Audi TT RS of the LMS engineering team, Tracy Crone's car, 154.622 the time for the Audi TT. In TCR, it was a Peugeot 908 benefit for the first two places, at least, the two team Ultran Peugeots finishing up first and second, 908 with a time of 158.899 ahead of 308 with a 159.327. And third in the TCR class was car number 108, Jim Brio, with the car number 108, the Cadspeed Racing Audi RS3, and that did a time of 1 minute 59.995. So top three, at least in TCR, all underneath the 2 minute mark. That's the summary. Meanwhile, Joe, the Precoat Herbert Motorsport Porsche did make it back into the pit garage and will be investigated, no doubt, for why it failed to restart for so long.
Yeah, we've got Andrew Marriott down in the pit lane. Andrew?
Yeah, Alfred Renault's just climbed out of the car, taking his helmet off. I'm going to go down there. No damage on the car at all, so let's see if we can get a word out of him and see what happened. I think it was just a bit of driver error. But I'm going to dive in a second. So, Alfred, I'm going to have to ask you what happened there.
I don't know exactly what happened there.
Just swapped in. It wasn't anything mechanical, or was it?
suddenly the car turned around when I was on the brake for the second corner. I don't know exactly what happened. We will see.
Okay. And then it didn't want to start again?
Before I go out for my second time?
No, just when it stopped, you had problems getting it refired.
Oh yes, I had big problems. But I don't know what happened.
Okay, so he doesn't know what happens. No damage though, Alfred, so that's a good thing. There you are. That's Alfred, obviously a bit confused about everything here. The team having a good look round the car, but I suspect it was a bit of driver error.
Yeah, well, yeah, and a little bit, yeah, perhaps he didn't want to really admit to you, Andrew, and also a little bit of confusion and, a little bit concern there going into the start of the race tomorrow with a problem. If it was a mechanical issue that induced that issue with the 911 Herbert Porsche, then they will be concerned about that. Well, that concludes our night practice for the 24 hours of Portimao. Next on the agenda will be morning warm-up for these competitors, but we'll be back with you tomorrow for the start of the race. And at the moment, we're scheduled to be back on air on radiolemans.com at 3 p.m. in the afternoon for a 3:30 race start. And we look back now at the practice, what saw all of our teams experiencing this Autodromo International Algarve, Portimao, for the first time, and drivers' perspectives on just what they thought of the track have been in a very positive light so far. Pretty much the whole of the past 2 days, unofficial practice and testing, saw pretty much everyone take part, and today we've had a practice session this morning in beautiful 34-degree sunshine, and then we went to the important bit of qualifying to form the grid, and then this evening we've just seen the checkered flag fall on our night practice session. And let's have a look at the highlights for our night practice session. 3 p.m. For a 3:30 race start, we'll be back with our grid walk and the rest of live and exclusive coverage of the inaugural 24 Hours of Portimao here in the Algarve. My name's Joe Bradley. Good night from all the team at RadioLeMans.com. We'll see you tomorrow.